Hello, I'm Ruth Burwood and I'm an Arts Council England Relationship Manager for Museum Accreditation. I work across the East of England, the South East and London. Normally, we work with museums at the point of submitting an application or a return to the accreditation scheme. This includes checking key documents that cover how museums manage their collections. We check they are in date, appropriate to the museum, and of course, if they meet the requirements of the accreditation standard. But sometimes relationship managers are asked to provide advice on disposals, and occasionally we will review a sale of an accessioned object from a collection. Today, I'm going to be talking through how you can use accreditation to guide you through the process of disposal, and in particular, what you should be thinking about when considering a sale of an accessioned object or a collection from an accredited museum. I will be covering what guidance is available and where to start, understanding what your responsibility is with regard to accreditation and disposal in your museum, and what to do if a decision is made to move forward with a sale. If you're already thinking this presentation is not for me, perhaps you don't get involved directly with collections, please don't click away just yet. It's really important that everyone in your museum is aware of their role in disposals, and it's the best way to avoid problems down the road. Ultimately, we all want to get it right to maintain public trust in our museums. Disposal is an accepted part of responsible collections management, and sales are just one method. So the good news is there is lots of help and guidance out there. In addition to support from your regional museum development team, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the essential guidance documents to make use of, all of which overlap with the accreditation standard. The amount of reading can feel daunting, so I'm going to pick up just a couple of relevant bits to highlight. And my top tip for where to start is with the Museums Association's current Code of Ethics. It covers all aspects of museum work and sets out key principles and supporting actions so that museums should make sure they take an ethical approach to their work. There are three overarching principles broken down, and the one which is of most interest to us today is the stewardship of collections, which includes treat museum collections as cultural, scientific or historic assets, not financial assets. It describes the difference between responsible disposal, that typically starts with a collections review and may end with a sale, and financially motivated disposal, where objects are identified for disposal through sale for the income they may generate. I will be explaining a bit more about this later, but it's really important to be thinking about the motivation for a sale from the outset. The Code of Ethics says that collections should not normally be regarded as financially negotiated assets, and museums should refuse to undertake disposal, principally for financial reasons, unless it will significantly improve the long-term public benefit derived from the remaining collection. This is where you'll see the guidance overlap directly with your accreditation documents, but more on that later. The additional guidance, the yellow document, adds another critical point to be aware of: to restrict the proceeds of disposal through the sale solely and directly for the benefit of the museum's collections. Now, these are the next two key documents from the Museums Association. The Disposal Toolkit is an essential document for all museums approaching all types of disposal. If you need some practical support with it, do have a look for training on this theme. Accredited museums are expected to follow the steps laid out here when they're undertaking disposals, and are encouraged to do so alongside their own accreditation documents. Basically, the toolkit says that items that are selected for their potential to generate income are relatively high risk, and it highlights the consequences of an unethical decision to remove, which can include the loss of accredited status and disciplinary action by the Museums Association if the museum is a member. The additional guidance on financially motivated disposal has a very specific purpose and lays out the 5-stage process to follow for financially motivated disposal only, based on the principle that this will only take place in exceptional circumstances. So the current sector guidance highlights that sales from collections are still relatively high risk, which is a reminder for us all that they can be contentious. Therefore, it's really important that we're all working towards the same standards, which is where accreditation plays its role. All types of disposals can be complicated, But as an individual, you can navigate your way through by asking for help and keeping informed. So you've looked through your sector guidance, you maybe have done some training, and your museum is considering a sale of an accessioned object or collection. Well, firstly, we would always recommend that you let us know as soon as possible. As an accredited museum, your organisation has committed to meeting a set of standards designed to safeguard the collections for the long term. Indeed, the purpose of the scheme is to reinforce a shared ethical way of doing things, and our role in the Arts Council is to manage the scheme and help museums maintain standards, whether you're the British Museum or the smallest volunteer-run one. Importantly, you will see the same terms and language used in the Museums Association documents throughout the accreditation standard and accompanying guidance. Both sets are designed to work alongside each other. The next task for you is to locate some key policies and documents to see where your particular museum stands on disposal. If the collections are not accessioned, we still recommend best practice and using the disposal toolkit and following the steps inside, but the process probably won't involve us. If you aren't sure whether something is accessioned or not, we would also recommend you seek advice. So to understand what your museum is required to consider with a sale, you need to look at the relevant section in the accreditation guidance and, most importantly, your museum's collections development policy. So what are you looking for in there? Well, the collections development policy is a requirement of accreditation and must be reviewed and approved by the governing body every 5 years. It outlines exactly how your museum will manage disposals, including sales from the collections. You'll need to check it's in date and it's based on the most current template. If you need help with this, please do get in touch with your regional accreditation advisor. Read through the policy to check there are no specific statements relating to particular parts of the collections, for example, a bequest or any governance implications. But it's clause 1.7 that is the one which includes a statement about sales with 5 exceptional circumstances. And here they are. Now, these are cross-referenced with the other sector publications. You'll see the same terminology in the guidance documents I talked through earlier. Note the references to curatorial and financially motivated disposal. When it comes to sales from collections, it's important to understand the distinction between the two in order to determine your next steps. Financially motivated disposal through sale is considered unethical, and the potential implications for your museum are significant. Considering a sale is rarely straightforward, and unpicking everything you need to be aware of and consider can be complicated. Once you've looked through the guidance, do get some practical advice for training, and of course check your museum's accreditation documents. If, however, the governing body moves on and makes a decision in principle to proceed, but not proceeded yet with a sale, we would always recommend talking to us or the Museums Association as soon as possible. We can help you. The next step would be to complete the following form. This is called the first contact form for a sale of items from a museum collection. It's a way of outlining your proposal and seeking formal advice. By completing it and submitting it to either ourselves or the Museums Association, it doesn't necessarily mean you're reporting yourselves for a sale or referring yourselves for an investigation. The purpose is to help us decide whether the sale is curatorially or financially motivated and establish the circumstances and the process leading up to the decision. We work with the Museum Association on this. You'll see there are a set of 11 questions and they act as prompts. They all align with those 5 exceptional circumstances I have discussed. Your answers to them will help us decide what the motivation for the sale is and if the proposal is likely to comply with accreditation requirements. We'll give you advice based on your answers as to what you should do next. So thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope it will be useful for you in case your organisation goes on to consider a sale, or indeed if you find yourself in an organisation that is thinking about it and you find you have to deal with it at that time. As I've already said, the reason we consider sales from collections as high risk is due to both the potential implications for the museum, which could include loss of accreditation and access to some funding, and the potential damage to the reputation of the museum amongst its community. My last piece of advice is to think how you'll manage consultation and communications in advance of any action taken. Many thanks and good luck.